On the 30th of August 1945, before Imperial Japan surrendered to the United States, the Yokosuka Naval District surrendered to Task Force 31, and based at Yokosuka was the final Japanese battleship afloat, Nagato. Nagato remained one of the largest battleships ever constructed by the time it was captured, and it was the largest warship captured from the Empire of Japan. The condition of the battleship was less than desirable. Almost all of its small-caliber armaments had been removed, with the exception of two triple 25mm anti-aircraft mounts on top of the No. 2 41cm turret. The ship's maintenance had effectively halted for nearly half a year, and there was minor bomb damage. The ship's funnel and mainmast had also been removed. It is said this was done to increase anti-aircraft firing arcs, but the ship didn't have any anti-aircraft guns, so there must have been a different reason. Regardless, with Japan officially surrendering on the 2nd of September 1945, Nagato was no longer needed, and it was removed from the operational list on the 15th of September. For several months, Nagato idled around as the United States inspected it and took information from it. In late February of 1946, Nagato was selected to be one of the battleships to participate in the atomic test at the Bikini Atoll in the upcoming months. In early March, the United States ran the ship up and down the Tokyo Bay 3 times to ensure that the propulsion system could remain operational for a lengthy period of time. On the 18th of March 1946, Nagato departs Japan, being the final Japanese battleship to sail out of a Japanese port en route for the Eniwetok Atoll. The ship is under the control of roughly 180 crew members supplied by the United States Navy, and the ship is also accompanied by the light cruiser Sakawa. A number of Nagato's boilers were unoperational, and so only 2 turbines were capable of operating for the trip, and the ship was only capable of 10 knots. After sailing for a week on the 26th of March, Nagato's bow begins to take on water as a result from unrepaired damage caused by bombs dropped on the 18th of July 1945. The crew counterfloods at the stern in order to maintain a level trim. By the 28th of March, Sakawa's propulsion machinery fails and the ship begins to drift. Nagato sends out a tow line and takes the light cruiser under tow, but shortly after doing that, another boiler goes offline within Nagato, and both ships are stranded in the ocean. Nagato signals for assistance from Eniwetok, and 2 tugboats are sent out to collect the 2 Japanese warships. Nagato is taken under tow by the USS Clamp, which manages to tow the battleship at 1 knot. Nagato arrives at Eniwetok on the 4th of April, and by the time it got there, the ship had taken on a 7-degree list to port as the result of flooding. While at Eniwetok, the ship's compartments would be pumped out, and the ship would receive repairs to its hull and machinery so that it could be seaworthy again. By May, the repairs were completed, and the ship leaves Eniwetok and steams to Bikini Atoll under its own power at 13 knots. The ship's arrival at Bikini was recorded on the 27th of April 1946 in a newsletter. It states, "Once the lofty pride of the Japanese fleet, the battleship Nagato will strike an iconic contrast as she enters the atoll shortly. Flying the American ensign and manned by an American crew, she will be the first of the Guinea ships to take her position for what may well be her last mooring. Then, humbly, she will await the fateful day when the blow, mightier than the greatest salvo ever produced by man, will descend." Once the ship was moored in its proper position, all of its equipment would be shut down for the final time, and water and electricity would be supplied to certain locations while the ship awaited the end. By the end of June, Nagato was fully prepared for the test, and the LST was removed, and on the 1st of July, 1946, Operation Crossroads would commence with Test Able. The bomb was dropped from an altitude of 28,000 feet from a B-29 Superfortress, and it would explode 518 feet above sea level. The target ship was Nevada, which was roughly 400 yards away from Nagato, but the bomb missed, and so Nagato was roughly 1,500 yards away from the bomb when it exploded. This meant that Nagato ended up being in the outer ring of the explosion. As a result, Nagato took minor damage. Some thin plating was wrinkled, non-watertight doors were blown off their hinges, and the paint was scorched. The report compiled following the explosion stated, The Nagato is structurally sound. The poor condition of the ship and her equipment is due to a lack of preventative maintenance and overhaul, and to the fact that her engineering plant sat idle for over a year. While it might have seemed that Nagato was safe, that was most certainly not true, as on the 25th of July 1946, Test Baker would commence, which was an underwater explosion. An atomic bomb was suspended 90 feet below the water's surface, and Nagato was positioned roughly 950 yards away from it. The Nagato vanished under the waves produced by the bomb, and by the time it reappeared, it had been displaced 400 meters from the location it was initially moored at. Roughly 5 hours after the bomb had detonated, Nagato was observed to have a 5-degree list to starboard. Unfortunately, following Test Baker, even though Nagato's flooding was slow, the ship would not be reboarded, and thus the flooding would not be stopped. Following Operation Crossroads, the task force commander stated that the director of ship material told him on the 29th of July that radiological hazards prevented the salvage of Nagato, and that efforts should be concentrated on decontaminating damaged ships that would in time require salvage measures. By the morning of the 28th of July, Nagato's starboard list was at 8 degrees, and the ship began to settle at the stern, and by the evening, the main deck was awash. By the evening of the 29th of July, Nagato was last seen at a list of roughly 120 degrees. During the night from the 29th to the 30th of July, Nagato vanished beneath the waves, unobserved. On the morning of the 30th of July, members from the U.S. task force would awake to find that the last Japanese battleship had finally been sunk. The final report regarding Nagato stated, "Capsizing as a result of progressive flooding, the watertight integrity of Nagato was found by test to be poor prior to the test. Holes discovered by divers after B-test plus known leakage sources were the causes of flooding. The absence of internal watertight integrity permitted progressive flooding. The portable area of the main flooding was around frame 190 starboard." With that, the final Japanese battleship met an end that was far from a glorious battle. On the upside, it is a Japanese battleship wreck that divers are permitted to access, so anyone with the knowledge, time, and money can go and see one of Japan's greatest vessels. With that having been said, there's nothing more to add on to this topic for today. So, if you have learned something new in this video, why not leave a like and a comment down below, and have a wonderful day.